When my son's wife told me to leave the room, I smiled instead of crying. I still remember how calm my face looked in that moment. Anyone watching would have thought I was fine, but inside, something quietly broke. The room was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence. It was heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. I stood there with my hands folded, nodding gently as if she had asked me for something small. Inside my chest, my heart felt out of place, like it no longer belonged where it had lived for years. But I did not raise my voice. I did not ask questions. I did not defend myself. I smiled because I did not want her to see my pain. I smiled because I did not want to seem weak in my own home. And I smiled because I had learned, over time, that explaining yourself does not always change anything. This was my house, the house where I raised my son alone, the house where his laughter once filled every corner, the house where I stayed awake at night praying for his future. I had cooked in this kitchen. I had cried quietly in these rooms. I had celebrated small joys here and survived deep losses. Every wall held a memory. Yet, in that moment, standing there quietly, I felt like a stranger, like someone who had stayed too long, like a guest who was no longer welcome. People often think betrayal is loud. They think it comes with shouting, anger, and harsh words. But sometimes betrayal comes softly, with a calm voice, with polite words, with someone who looks at you kindly while slowly pushing you aside. I never imagined my son's wife would be the one to make my home feel cold. I never imagined I would smile while my heart was breaking. And I never imagined that silence could hurt more than any argument. This is not a story of revenge. It is not a story of hate. It is a story of quiet pain. A story of love that was taken for granted, and a story of a mother who stayed calm even when everything inside her was falling apart. I was not always this quiet person you hear today. There was a time when my house was full of noise. Laughter, questions, small arguments, and late-night talks. All of it came from my son. I raised him on my own. His father passed away when he was still young. From that day on, my life became simple and focused. Work, home, and my child. That was all. I worked long hours. Some days I came home tired, my feet aching. But when I heard my son call my name, everything felt lighter. He was my strength, even when I was supposed to be his. We did not have much money, but we had warmth. Our meals were simple, our furniture was old, but our home always felt alive. As he grew older, I watched him change. His voice became deeper, his dreams became bigger, and slowly I realized he would not always belong only to me. When he told me he wanted to get married, I smiled. I was happy for him. I truly was. I believed marriage would bring more love into our home, not less. The day I met my daughter-in-law for the first time, she seemed polite, soft-spoken, careful with her words. She greeted me with respect, or at least that is what I thought. I told myself to give her space. I did not want to be the kind of mother who interferes. I wanted her to feel comfortable. I wanted her to feel like this was her home, too. After the wedding, she moved in with us. At first, everything felt normal. We shared the kitchen, we shared meals, we shared small conversations. I noticed changes, but I ignored them. I told myself every new marriage needs time. Every new person needs adjustment. Love does not grow overnight. My son seemed happy, and that mattered most to me. I stepped back quietly. I spoke less. I gave them space, even when it felt lonely. I stopped correcting small things. I stopped sharing opinions. I stopped expecting gratitude. I thought silence would keep peace. But silence
has its own cost. Slowly, without anyone noticing, my place in the house began to shrink. Not physically, but emotionally. I still lived there. I still cooked sometimes. I still cleaned my corner of the world. But I no longer felt seen. At night, when everyone slept, I sat alone in my room. I looked at old photos. I remembered the days when this house felt warm without effort, and I wondered when exactly that warmth began to fade. I did not know then that this was only the beginning. I did not know that small silences can grow into deep wounds, and I did not know that the hardest moments were still waiting for me.
At first, the changes were very small, so small that anyone could miss them. A pause before answering, a look that did not last long. My daughter-in-law began waking up earlier than me. She would finish in the kitchen before I arrived. When I entered, everything was already clean. There was no need for me anymore. I told myself this was good. She was responsible, she was active, I should be proud. But slowly she stopped asking me things. What to cook, how much salt to add, which spice my son liked more. She did everything her own way. I stayed quiet. I watched from a distance. I reminded myself that times change. During meals, conversations became short. My son spoke to her more than to me. They shared looks I was no longer part of. I ate slowly, listening more than speaking. Sometimes I tried to join the talk. I shared a memory, a small story from the past. But my words often fell into silence. She would nod. My son would smile politely. Then the conversation would move on without me, like I was not even there. One evening, I asked her gently if she needed help. She looked surprised. Then she said, "No, I've got it." Her voice was calm but closed. After that, I stopped asking. I stayed in my room more. I kept myself busy with small things, cleaning, folding, organizing memories. The house felt different. Not angry, not loud, just cold in a quiet way. I noticed my belongings being moved. A cup I always used was gone. My chair was shifted slightly away from the table. Small things, but they hurt. Once, I asked my son about it. He said, "Ammi, don't overthink." He smiled, trying to keep peace. But peace built on silence is fragile. I started choosing my words carefully. I measured every sentence. I feared saying the wrong thing. I feared becoming a problem. There were days when no one spoke to me at all. We lived in the same house, but in different worlds. I could hear laughter from the other room. I stayed quiet behind closed doors. At night, I replayed moments in my head. I asked myself what I did wrong. Was I too quiet or not quiet enough? I wanted to ask her. I wanted to clear the air, but something held me back, a fear of hearing the truth. Deep inside, I felt a shift, like a door slowly closing, not slammed, just gently pushed shut. And I still told myself this would pass. I believed patience would fix everything. I believed love would find its way back. I did not know how close I was to the breaking point.
The day everything changed did not start with noise. There was no argument, no raised voice. It was a quiet morning, just like many others. I was folding clothes in my room when she knocked on the door. That alone surprised me. She never knocked anymore. She usually spoke from a distance. I opened the door slowly. She stood there with her hands crossed. Her face was calm, too calm. She said my name softly, not lovingly, not angrily, just carefully. She asked if we could talk. My heart felt tight. I nodded and stepped aside. She did not come in. Instead, she stayed near the door, like she did not want to stay long, like this conversation had a time limit. That hurt more than words. She spoke slowly. She said the house felt crowded. She said she needed space. She said it would be better if I stayed somewhere else for a while. For a moment, I did not understand. Her words sounded polite, but their meaning was sharp. They cut quietly. I asked her what she meant. She looked away and said, "Just for peace." Peace. Such a soft word, used like a weapon. I smiled. I do not know why. Maybe to protect myself. Maybe because crying felt heavier. I asked about my son. She said he agreed. That part stayed in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold. Later, I asked him myself. He avoided my eyes. He said, "It's temporary." But his voice had no strength. I realized then, this was not sudden. This had been decided quietly, without me. That night, I packed my things slowly. Each item carried a memory, a cup, a shawl, a framed photo. No one stopped me. No one asked to stay. The door closed softly behind me, and the house that raised my son no longer felt like mine. I did not feel anger. I felt empty, like a place inside of me had been cleared out, left clean, but hollow. I walked away with dignity, but something broke that day. Not loudly, silently. I moved into my sister's small apartment that same evening. She welcomed me with open arms. She did not ask questions right away. She only held my hand. Her home was warm, but my heart felt cold. At night, I lay awake listening to the fan. Every sound reminded me of what I had lost. Not the house, but my place in it. I kept thinking about my son, about how quiet he had been, about how easily he had let me go. That pain stayed longer than anything else. Days passed slowly. I tried to help around the house. I tried to stay busy, but silence followed me everywhere. Sometimes I blamed myself. Maybe I stayed too much. Maybe I loved too deeply. Maybe I forgot that children grow away from us. I stopped calling my son first. Not out of pride, out of tiredness. I needed space to breathe. One afternoon, he came alone. He looked older, tired. His eyes carried regret. He sat across from me quietly. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said softly, "I failed you." I did not answer right away. I listened. He said he was afraid of losing his marriage. He did not realize he was losing his mother, too. I placed my hand on his. I told him I never stopped loving him, that love does not leave, even when homes do. We cried quietly. No drama, no blame, just truth. That moment did not fix everything, but it healed something small inside me, enough to breathe again, enough to forgive. I learned that day that peace sometimes comes late, and forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not others. Today, my life is quieter than it used to be. I wake up early, I sit near the window with my tea, I watch the morning light move slowly across the wall. I no longer live in the house where I raised my son, but I carry those years inside me. No one can take that away. Memories do not need walls to survive. Sometimes I still miss the sound of his footsteps, the way he used to call me from the other room, the way he smiled without worry. Those memories come softly now, without pain. I have learned something important through all of this. Love does not always stay where you leave it. Sometimes love changes shape. Sometimes it learns to stand at a distance. I also learned that being kind does not mean being weak. Walking away quietly can take more strength than shouting. Keeping your dignity is a form of courage, even when your heart feels tired. I do not hate my daughter-in-law. I no longer carry anger. Anger is heavy, and I have carried enough weight in my life. I wish her peace, because peace is what I searched for too, and I finally found it inside myself. Not in a house, not in people, but in acceptance. If you are listening to my story tonight, please remember this. Your worth is not measured by where you are allowed to stay. Your value does not disappear when others change. Sometimes the coldest moments teach us the warmest lessons. Sometimes losing a place helps you find yourself. And sometimes silence is where healing begins. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it brought you comfort. And if your heart feels heavy tonight, please know you are not alone.